was shooting this documentary to keep record on the search for my cousin Jordan. It's another dead end who has literally disappeared.
Exactly does this drug cure?
Everything.
Everything.
It has the potential. We have to test it on people.
Just had a negative reaction.
Are you out of your mind? You haven't felt any side effects? Good God.
She's not contagious.
Hush, little baby, don't say a word.
Definitely conspiracy. What kind of shit was your cousin into?
Mama's gonna buy you a mockingbird.
It's growing inside of you.
Why is everybody going crazy?
You're fucking fool! We only had good intentions.
Well, I am back with not one actor, sometimes co-host actor Cuyle Carvin, but another actor, Kazy Tauginas. Kazy, I hope I said it right. He's got a great name, and he's a great actor. Cuyle and Kazy worked on a film probably about 15 years ago that is actually just now seeing the light of day, but for a good reason. Actually, there's some karma in the timing of this. So let me just first say welcome, Cuyle. Welcome to the podcast.
Yay.
Welcome, Kazy. Glad to have you on and seeing you in all your glory. And cool. Cuyle, why don't you kick it off? Because you were actually in the film with a role I didn't know if I was rooting for or not until the very end, and then I still had mixed feelings, So why don't you go ahead and kick off this with Kazy, and I'll throw in some questions as we go along.
Bob has some awesome questions. And, I have a little insight to some of them, but even, this was so long ago and we recently premiered the film. It was in October, right, Kazy?
We did. I mean, we did the screening event back in the summer in August, and then the film actually was released mid-October.
Okay. Yeah. So like, even when watching it again, I had been so far removed. I know you were in the midst for years, but I kind of did it. When was that? 2008 or something like that?
No. We shot summer of 2011, the initial stuff. Okay. Yeah.
So it's like, and then I had been far removed until suddenly 2025 comes, and then going to see it again. But so much has happened, and as Bob mentioned, like the timing of this kind of release is with the new title, Mirror Life.
Yeah.
Which is also aligns with this new scientific theory.
Yeah.
And so what did you know about, like, the mirror life in terms of the science?
I mean, when we first worked on the script, it was really far removed from, the general public, right? Like nobody would have known. And that's really, when you're making an indie title, it can be really easy just to kind of fall into tropes and just like end up making a movie that's just like some other movie, right? And just kind of just falling in the track of like, well, we saw this and this, and we could do something cool like that. And I think the initial real approach, and as it was, through 2025 to the release of the film, it was like, what can we do about this to make it different and something that you haven't seen before, right? So the goal of using Mirror Life as like a plot device wasn't really like the goal of it wasn't really was never really designed to be a zombie movie at all. Like total, right? Like everyone, like I almost feel like modern zombies is a bit of a misnomer because it's more about like the people that created it, the people that were affected by it. But if you were going to put this in the timeline of how things would play out with a zombie, like the way people are affected by Mirror Life, the Mirror Life, right? It's almost like a very realistic take on like how could this potentially play out? Because no one really knows, right? Like Mirror Life is essentially a theory, right? So it's basically saying that in its simplest form is like creating a synthetic life form, right, to correct an ailment or disease, essentially, and that's what we used it for in the screenplay. And obviously, years ago, no one even heard of it, and then all of a sudden, this last December, 2024, every major like CNN, MSNBC, Science. I mean, like hundreds and like thousands probably at this point in time. People like podcasters, YouTubers, everyone started talking about Mirror Life and how, dangerous it was, and really stemmed from, scientists coming together and just warning about like this could be very dangerous if it did come to fruition, because essentially what it's saying is like, if you create a synthetic life form, then people's immune systems wouldn't know how to necessarily react to it. All natural, biological functions would not know how to interact with something that was completely synthetic, made with, opposite-handed, proteins and amino acids and whatnot. So like, I'm trying to keep it as basic at a basic level as possible, but basically creating a synthetic life form that the body would not know how to potentially react to could potentially lead to an extinction level event.
That's great. And this is definitely a script and a film way ahead of its time, right? Because on a couple aspects, because lo and behold, COVID happens, and then AI happens. And so I think the quick premise of this, just so the audience knows, is it's very clever in how it's done. It's done in multiple narratives. It starts with like a documentary type thing, found footage thing, where your cousin is you disappear from an experimental trial and she's trying to track you down. Yeah. And then it cuts to actual live narrative footage of you have the story of what happened there. And really, it's just kind of a story of, a drug called Dutramal that goes bad, and what you should do. Who do you protect? Who do you kill? Who do you protect? And that's kind of an interesting story. Hope I'm not giving anything away, but basically it goes back and forth, and there's a lot of action in it, and a lot of people you don't know quite who's the good guy or who's the bad guy in it. And Kyle, you're one of them. So looking from the outside in, it was really ahead of its time, and it's a good time to release it now, and it holds up well. The script, I thought, held up very well, as well as the creative editing that your editor did, going back between all these different narratives, including a third one with you at the end, Kyle, and where, that's where it ends up. So we'll stop there before I give too much away, but go ahead, Kyle. But I just wanted to give an audience perspective that this is something, is a really strong movie, a really good script, and I just think it's part of it was shot later, right? Part of it was shot later, Kazy. And I had a hard time telling, what was new. So Kyle, hop back in, man. Go ahead.
Well, continue with that thought about the
So, I mean, the initial cut of the film, I can only really talk from my perspective. Because of budget constraints, I mean, everything comes down to budget constraints. Like, this is like a, family, friends, Kickstarter, crowdfund, credit card type of a film, right? Like, there's no studio involvement whatsoever. We've got studio quality actors like Kyle and Victor and Courtney Cavanaugh, and we had really strong cast, but this was like a like fight for every minute of footage that you got to put it together. So I think our biggest adversary in the real world, not in the film, was budget constraints. So, when you're trying to tailor the story and you don't necessarily have the budget to do the big things that you want to do, you have to get really creative. And over time, a lot of things happened. The film never got picked up. We didn't get distribution, the initial cut, and kind of, life happens. I got really busy in acting, and the film kind of was kind of shelved. But it always sat in the back of my head. That bothered me that we had put in so much work. Like, when Kyle flew out, and, we got all these, got everyone together, and everyone poured their heart and soul into this. It's an indie. Like, everyone that gets on board is really, fighting for that piece. It feels like you go to war together to get it done. And it never really sat right with me that it was just kind of sitting there. And ironically, when the pandemic hit, and obviously work completely dried up, and then strikes and all these things happen in the industry that really changed my trajectory from, this kind of like breaking into the mainstream and working regularly. I thought that it would be a good time to revisit. So I just took a look at all the footage, and we essentially did some serious reshoots in 2025. We had, I just compiled everything that we had. We added stuff where we needed it, and we put together like a secondary timeline. And I felt like we could use the Tracy character kind of as almost like an on-screen narrator to take people through this chain of events, right? She's tracking.
Tracy is your cousin, right? That's
Yes,
the one.
yes,
That's the one
played by Courtney Cavanaugh. Yes, yes.
Right, yep.
So Tracy's kind of like she's a few steps behind where Jordan has been. So if you watch the movie, especially if someone watches it and you think about like, oh, that's what Jordan was there at one point in time. Jordan was there at one point in time, and then Jordan was there at one point in time, and she's steps behind trying to figure out what happened to him. And I thought, it would be a really inexpensive, way to kind of tie up those loose ends for the story, was like doing it found footage style, where you don't have to set lights, you don't have to do all this other stuff. So initially the thought was doing some found footage stuff for promo only, and then that obviously grew, and then just the technology that we had at our fingertips at 2011 versus 20, when we started this process, I don't know, like the recut started in like 2022, I think, maybe somewhere around there. Technology, like we were able to do things, you know what I mean? Like we were able to do compositing and just make changes and do additions, and, throw a steel bedpan instead of a plastic one, and just all these different things that didn't work with the previous cut, and we were able to correct them. Even the sound design elements that we have access to now, like, allowed us to really, level up what we had.
Yeah, Kyle and I were laughing at the bedpan comment because I was giving. So Kazy is a Golden Gloves boxer, and Kyle's a pretty tough dude too. But there's a scene where a patient throws a bedpan and it drops him down, and he's like, "Ooh, my shoulder hurts." Ooh, ooh. So I just. But the rest of it's like fisticuffs, like crazy. So, anyways, thanks for letting me slip that in, Kazy. I appreciate that. I can't tell you how many interviews I have. Everybody loves Kyle, and for good reason, but it just once in a while I have to get something in. Just
yeah, it's funny because I've gotten so many comments too about, it's like, dude, you got a bedpan took you out. It's like,
well, look, he in real life he's a peak physical form, but he was playing a scientist, who was not used to physical confrontation.
It's the actor. Bob, you had mentioned before, like, you don't know who to really root for in this.
Yeah.
And I think, translating that into real life, I think that happens a lot, especially in I'll say, like, pharmaceutical industry. I think there's so many people get into it with such good intentions, like you see in the film, that just get caught up in bad systems, bad programs by people that are higher power authority, and have different agendas at play. And that's what I like that aspect of the film too. It's where it's just like, it really showcases, because so many times in films you have, I wouldn't say they're necessarily black and white, but you don't always get the insight for even somebody like Thanos in Avengers Endgame. Like, they humanized him, that he wanted something really bad. And he makes half the population disappear, but it's, in his mind, it's for a good cause. It's for the benefit of all. But in a lot of movies, they make it a lot more black and white than that, where you don't get to see the insight of good people doing bad things without necessarily without personal reasons or having some major personal benefit. And in this, it's like there's a major benefit for all of humanity. So
yeah, it really raises a question about a moral compass. And it's funny because both sides of the table, there are people that were like, knowing it's not exactly right, and how many lives are worth, making disposable in order for the progress of science. So it raises a lot of moral and ethical things, and has a nice comeback story to it, payback. So I'll stop there. Let's talk about Golden Gloves really quickly, Kazi. Tell us about that. How did that work out? I saw you a very strong right punch you use a lot in this film. Is there? How did that help you with the physicality of the film and doing an action film 15 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, I've just always kind of been in athletics like my whole life. Like when I was younger, my parents made me play every single sport every single season, and then I kind of really got into winter sports. So I was figure skating for years. That was kind of like my jam, and then I always had a fascination with boxing. So when I kind of got sick of the politics of skating, I just still wanted to be athletic and still continue to do things. And I've always been one to just kind of go after the thing that I want to do because I'm trying to, live my life with no regrets. So I went after boxing. And initially it was just kind of trying to learn the skill, but then, my trainer, Cliff Johnson, I trained with him at Left Jab Boxing Club in West Grove, Pennsylvania. And he kind of pushed me into, fighting a little bit. And I'm really glad I did it. I mean, boxing is, I used to own a 24-hour diner. If I hadn't have been boxing, there were numerous occasions where things could have probably gotten a lot worse than they did. But when when you've trained, and you actually know how to fight a little bit, you don't get that adrenaline rush that people normally would get if a situation was arising. You can still think clearly, etc. And then obviously when I that whole process came to a crazy end and I had to let the restaurant go and completely start over again. I went after acting, but because I knew how to box and, a lot of actors don't, I just used that to my advantage and, just kept kind of, the industry likes to kind of put you on a track, whether you like that track or not. And I got a lot of physical stuff and being coordinated and knowing how to fight, knowing like when you get punched, your head snaps this way or your head snaps this way, or those innate physical reactions that a person that isn't a fighter wouldn't necessarily know. There have been a lot of times that luckily I was coordinated and I knew how you would move if you were getting hit, et cetera, because the other actor on the other side didn't know what they were doing, right? But I could kind of compensate for that. So when we wrote the script, it was kind of like a given that Jordan was going to be physical and things that were going to happen, that were going to be very physical in nature, and he was going to be put in some very dangerous situations. And, if you look at the picture, when Tracy flashes it up at the beginning of the movie, there's a t-shirt that he's wearing a Golden Gloves t-shirt. So we established like a little bit, that's where Jordan's right hand comes from. He was he was a one-handed fighter, just throwing those major right hands.
No, both were good, but yeah. Kyle, what did you think when you saw the film after it was recut? What was your reaction?
I was actually, and I told Kazy that night that first I was just really proud to be part of it, which you can't always say as an actor. Like a lot of times, you know how it is. You kind of just have to take jobs when you can get jobs. It's just the way the industry works. And even the first time when I saw it, it was always a standout film. And then when I saw the second one, especially knowing that there was so much gap in between time of filming new sequences and such, it was so seamless that it was almost unbelievable that I don't think people would even know unless you're told. That this was filmed at so many different 15 years apart or whatever it was. And so proud to be part of the film. So good. I said, Kazy, I told you that night, I think it's one of the best projects that I've personally feel I've been a part of. And I still feel that way. It's so good. And I think, what you were just talking about, like the physicality of the film, oftentimes when you're talking in the lower budget indie realm, there's a lot of avoidance of action because that stuff takes, most of the time you have to get like stunt coordinators. That's pricey and that's like priced out of the budget for most things. So when you have people like Kazy and Mako who are, fighting and they're used to fighting and they're in the film, like the amount of value that gives to the film alone also is such a highlight, and it doesn't detract, because when you see the lower budget films that they don't want to, like, they know the violence is necessary, so they stick it in, but they don't necessarily know what they're doing. It sticks out and often detracts from the experience. So that was another thing that really played really well with the film. But I loved it, and I'm so glad to be a part of it.
Mm. Well,
Yeah,
I'm happy you like it, brother.
yeah, well, I liked it too. From an outside looking in, man, I was very pleasantly surprised, and I was like thinking, like, wow, this is cut really well. The acting's really good, and the story, I didn't know where it was quite going to end. I mean, I had an idea, but I didn't quite know how it was going to end, and I was very pleasantly surprised. It's the right amount of time. You didn't go too long. It's like, was it like 90 minutes roughly, I guess, or around there?
Little under, yeah.
Just a lot of stuff really done really well, Kazy. And what was your take? Did you like the first? Were you nervous when you said, "Oh, I got to recut this," or were you really happy with how it came out, this final version?
I mean, so our editor, Aidan Kane, I mean, the movie is what it is because of his level of intellect and creativity and time. Because what we lacked in budget was made up for in time, and it was just like a really long process, because he basically edited when he had time, because he's a professional editor. That's what he does for a living, and works on really, really big things. But he really liked the idea that I presented to him, and had always really wanted to sink his teeth into something narrative and juicy and horror. And my thought was, I felt like what was missing from our early cut was there was a lot of tension that wasn't there, that should have been there. Sound design, and Aidan has like a incredible working knowledge of sound design. Like, so when he's editing, he's thinking of all of those elements. And I told him, I'm really trying to give this movie, we need to capitalize on that tension, but we need to give this movie some jump scares, because we have setups for them. And let's see where let's do it. Let's pull out all the stops, because you only have one shot to put a film out, and you just want to make it the absolute best that you can. And that was the thing, is like, some people may complain that it isn't a non-linear narrative. I could care less, because I wanted to make something different. So whether someone likes it or hates it, they can admit that they never saw anything like it before, right? Yeah. Because you don't see movies that really do that often. And if you're going to put out
I'm sorry to interrupt. Apologies. Does anyone compare your film to any existing films? Because obviously you wrote it first and you did it, but has your film been compared to any other films, or is it just an outlier?
We've gotten, I don't remember, someone said it had like a Pulp Fiction style jumping of around, which I didn't really, I guess it does, because, Pulp Fiction, you have, like, you're all of a sudden Travolta gets, shot in a bathroom, and you're like, what the, like, you're like, what? When the first time you watch that, because you kind of like Vincent, right? You're like, that guy's, and especially because you followed him around for that whole Uma Thurman story. So I think at the end of the day, like when people liked Game of Thrones, and there would be characters that would drop and you'd get pissed about it, but they kept watching, because I think at the end of the day, if you are going to make a movie or you're going to tell a story, and so many of these stories have already been done, you have to find a way to give people something different. But you do have a sect of audience that is okay with watching the same movie over and over again, just different actors, right? They're okay with that. This movie really isn't for them. Like this movie is for people that are looking for something different. And that was really important for us in the edit, is like, we wanted to give it a very unique flavor and give it its best shot of giving people a surprise, right? Like, oh man, that happened. Like, I remember when we're screening in front of the live audience, and there's a moment where someone gets offed, and like the whole audience was like, oh, And I didn't know how I was going to like what I was going to get in front of the live audience. I had no idea how, we poured hours and hours and hours and hours into this edit and reshoots and all this stuff. And, we poured our souls into finishing it. So I didn't know how people were going to react. But then when the jump scares worked and, people were like oohing and eyeing, I was like, wow, like we actually did what we set out to do. And I really always felt like if you're going to put something out and it's like the first, big thing that you're not big, but like the first thing you're putting out that has like your name all over it. And my name is all over it as, whatever. I just wanted it to be different than any other project that you would be seeing. And I think we did achieve that.
Yeah, a lot of films smaller films will try to overcompensate with music, or sound effects or special effects. I saw none of that. I saw it was more restrained. You stayed in your lane for the most part, and which makes it even more admirable and incredible that it works 15 years later, with the embellishments that you made. So that is a 1 in a million story. I think you don't see that happen too often. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you guys have heard of it, but they come back like that, and to have the timing so perfect. Yeah, I bet you there'll be some copycats coming out of this, this style, and that's probably the ultimate compliment, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to be insulted. Listen, if people at the end of the day, make up your own mind, watch it, and enjoy it or not enjoy it or whatever. But, we wanted to just come out there and we wanted to go, come out swinging, but come out swinging in a way where like what, Kyle was saying, like you're not doing too much, like in terms of, the VFX that were needed or, like we didn't have shootouts or anything. There's no zombie horde, right? Like, so like some people I know are well, where were the zombies? I'm like, well, that's not the kind of movie it is. I don't know where you would watch the trailer for the film and be like, oh, there's going to be a lot of zombies in this. Like, where in the trailer do you see someone like scream out brains and like be like brains? Like you don't see it in the trailer. So like I find this whole experience for me has been really funny to like see, like different perspectives because like you get that one sect who's just like, well, they killed off all these people, so I didn't know who to root for.
Yeah. Well, that's not the message. The message is the bigger message is the science versus, humanity. What's the cost? What's the balance? And how do you do that? So Kyle, you've killed a lot of brain zombies in The Walking Dead, right? And you were on that show for a cameo experience. Kazy, you kind of reinvented or modernized the zombie mythology for this film. Could you just talk a little bit about that to set expectations for people that watch the film? I know we've talked about the storyline, but just kind of where that comes from, modern zombie.
Yeah. Well, so the I guess really the modern zombie it's kind of like defines itself, right? Like it's modern. It's not the type of a zombie situation that you have seen before. Again, it's different. So like there's actually a part of the story where you actually get to see the effect that the mirror life, synthetic life form has on one singular human being, right? And that is, Kyle's wife's character, right? So like the scientist's wife's character, you see how it affects her. She's been in quote unquote infected, and you see what it does. And I think that creating it in a very like it's a very intimate vision of like what happens to someone, right? Like it's intimate. It's like one person's perspective of this potentially apocalyptic event. From that perspective, she was stuck up in a house trying to stay safe from the outside world. And guess what? We can all relate to that because what did we just do like 5 years ago? We were all stuck up in our houses trying to stay safe from the outside world, peeking out of windows, who's walking around. Oh, they have a mask on. They don't have a mask on. All the things that we were doing during that time, right? I think ironically, we portray that in this film. When it was shot, we had no idea that it was almost like predictive programming, but it kind of is, right? Like, because that's basically what we were all doing. I mean, made a lot of the population like very, paranoid. So this is not at all like a zombie movie. This is not Night of the Living Dead. Although the cinematographer from the 1990 remake saw the film at a screening in New York and went wild, like loved it. He was,
That's
he was,
awesome.
That's cool.
he,
Best
he was
ever.
like, "This is such a wacky movie. I got to see it again."
Yeah.
And very complimentary, like the sound design and stuff. So, having like an OG who's worked on something iconic like that turn around and give you like that, that compliment was that was like, that felt good. But it's just like a different take. It's just like, every movie that you see at the end of the day is a take on something else that you've already seen before. It's just whether it's done well or not. And so like, I think typical zombie, Walking Dead type fans that are looking for headshots and exploding craniums and stuff and blood and guts this is not that movie. We didn't remotely have enough money in the budget to even do anything close to that. So we had to be,
But au contraire, there was a lot of action in the film. There was a lot of
Right,
physicality and a lot of action in the film. Yeah.
right. Everything that we did, we could do right there for the most part on set and do it in a way like, the fight sequences, put a lot of time in that. Mako and I put a lot of work into our sequence, right? Into the choreography. And we figured out ways for a low budget to make, I think, engaging action sequences.
I think that there's a lot of, obviously zombies, because horror fans are loyal to all things horror. Whatever the subgenre within horror, that's one cool thing about making anything in the genre and all the subgenres of horror is that you have loyal fans, but especially you see zombie, there are subsects of people that only like their favorite thing are zombie movies. And for so long, basically you had this idea. Obviously I'm going to be pretty ignorant in stating this, but I'm not sure of all the zombie films that have been made, but from everything I can think of anyway, a zombie is traditionally somebody that's not alive, like they've died and they come back to life. Right? I might be wrong on that. Maybe there's something I'm thinking. Anyway, regardless, like this is, this Mirror Life really highlights something that I think is really makes plausibility, because we've all talked about like, what if zombies were real? Like, how would we react? But we all know like, well, it's just not realistic. So that's why we talk about, have those conversations. But this feels like it could be credible. It lends a lot of plausibility, because you see, it's like these people don't die and come back to life. This is it's a slow process that makes, it feels like it could make sense.
Yeah.
There's also like a religious question that's not brought out, but it's always there. It's like, man always trying to improve mankind. There's going to be errors along the way. And when should you not be messing around with DNA and stuff? And when should you just let, evolution kind of fix things? So as we go through this whole transhumanism thing going forward in the next 20, 30 years, there's going to be some bumps on the road like this, quite frankly, if it goes along that path. And so this is has some foresight in this film as well. And it's good. You never raised that morality question too hard, I thought, and I remembered, but I was always aware of it, which I thought was pretty good.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, you don't want to beat people over the head with themes. You allow audiences to kind of figure things out for themselves. And I think there's definitely a warning shot against, just look at Kyle's character, right? Like Taylor, you see the moment in the meeting. Like you see the moment on his face. Should we continue? They literally ask him, should we continue? And he's like, well, I don't know what you did. You did something cool that made sense, right?
They have to watch it. Make them watch it.
It's like, where do you listen to your instinct versus following the money? And I think that's a thing that just like the human existence now. It's like people do a lot of things for money, right? They become unethical for money, right? Because at the end of the day, they're like, okay, the people that I'm working for are doing something that could actually harm other people. I'm looking at these clinical trials and this is dangerous and maybe we shouldn't continue. Maybe I should say something, but then I would lose my job and they would try to discredit me. You get into these positions, people are put into these positions where they're faced with like doing the right thing, taking the right path could become very, very, very difficult. And I think it puts you in a really bad position. Like, okay, so the ability to pay my mortgage and take care of my family and all this now has come to a head because I've taken part in something that is unethical. And now where do I go from here? Do I pretend like I didn't see what I saw? Right? Do we pretend like Rosemary didn't have this negative reaction, this like scary negative reaction to the formula? Or, or do I say, we need to cut this off and, we need to reevaluate and call it a day before anyone else gets hurt. And I think that there's probably some insight into how a lot of events that have occurred where, medications have gone out and then years later you find out they were incredibly dangerous. Pharma's famous for those types of situations. So,
sorry to interrupt you there, but that's like, if you were anybody like listening, if you Google how many pharmaceutical drugs are pulled from the shelves every single year, it would blow your mind. But people don't know that. But sorry, but that's a good point that you mentioned.
No, I wanted to. I think, I felt those scenes, the meetings with between the scientists and Gosling, I thought it was important to punch those up and really show the moral crisis that was happening, right? Especially with your character, since your character and Bristol Pomeroy's character Donovan were the two kind of forces behind the technology. And I think we really wanted to make that feel real, and maybe even reflect on some events that have happened in recent history.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the film. I had a bunch of questions, but I want to get just to where can they see it? Because we've kind of talked a lot about where can they see it? Because I saw it. Where can they see it streaming right now?
Right now, it's available to rent or purchase on Amazon, and you can also get the DVD on Amazon. I think we're on. You could rent it on YouTube, maybe Google Play, a few places, but for the most part, I'm just Amazon. If you've got you got access to Amazon, you can rent it. If physical media is your thing, we have we actually have a DVD with a couple of deleted scenes, and we've got director commentary and a blooper reel, a pretty funny blooper reel especially between Kyle and I trying to.
In The Office there.
Yeah.
So there's this scene where I don't think I met you before the film, right?
No,
we just kind of knew of each other through mutual friends, but I was actually remember being intimidated doing that scene because I think up to the point in that filming we had very limited time, if not any screen time, like shooting scenes together.
Yeah.
So I didn't really know you. I knew a little bit of things like, oh, this guy could, beat my ass. This boxer, this big dude, and he's kind of like a scary looking guy to me. So in this, and I'm already, and my character's supposed to. I felt like you can actually see it in the scene. I think where I'm a little like, I gotta be careful of my approach of this conversation. But that was also me in real life, because I was like, I don't know what to think about Kazy. What does Kazy actually think about me? Does he regret hiring me? Does he want me here? Like, what is he thinking of me right now? So you can totally, that seems like a real thing.
Oh, that's funny. Oh,
Yeah.
man. I was just excited that we had a big Hollywood actor come into our city.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we both are now. What are some of the other things you've been in? Because you've been in a lot of shows like Kyle too, Kazy. What are some of the things that people can see that they may have seen you in or that you're working on now?
Yeah, I mean, I've done all the, I did all the New York shows, SVU, Blue Bloods. I don't know what else shoots in New York. I've probably done it. Sneaky Pete, TV, and then Equalizer 2, probably my most prominent role. Played one of the main villains in Equalizer 2. I was on the Equalizer show with Queen Latifah as well. I
have to go back and watch Equalizer 2 now. I gotta, because now it's like ringing a bell. I'm kind of getting a connection, but I gotta go back and watch that. Yeah.
Dolomite Is My Name with Eddie Murphy. I feel like I've been blessed enough to have been able to play characters where when people watch it, they don't recognize me. And I love that. Like, people don't even realize I'm in Dolomite because they put a wig on me. It's very period piece. They're just like, wait. And they go back and they're like, oh my God, he's like all over the film. Right. So, Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to have gotten these really big Hollywood films and shows, and like Kyle knows, like there's a difference between just being a uh I don't know, a screw that's getting drilled into like this structure being built, and then being the one that's actually building the structure. And I can definitely say that content creation, I'm incredibly grateful for the roles that I've gotten and the resume that I've been able to build up, but nothing feels the same as being able to create your own content and tell the story that you want it to be able to tell. And like, Mirror Life is one of those things where I'm just like super proud that we were able to finish it. It's out there in the world for people to see. But also I did like a short film a few years back, Standing 8, which was it's also on Amazon. That's about a boxer who was diagnosed with lupus and then forced to retire. And my mother has been suffering with lupus since before I was born. And that was like one of those, projects that obviously made no money because it was like a short film, but we got it out there to the world. But it meant a lot to the population suffering from lupus. And that was like one of those points where I was just like, content creation is really, when you are the painter and the canvas and you are the one making the art, like really making your art. I was like, and doing it for something that's meaningful, like raising awareness for lupus that's the stuff that you feel the best about. At least for me. I don't know how it is for Kyle, but like for me, being able to like see the project from inception to completion is probably one of the most satisfying things. And then just having whatever you do actually touch someone or actually, bring value to someone else's life is it's a really good feeling. And then you're not just being like an entertainer. You're going beyond that. And I think that's kind of a path that a lot of creatives, don't take. They kind of just rely on their managers and agents just to land them projects. And trust me, content creation ain't easy. Finding money, not easy. Ask for credit score. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not easy.
Do you have another script in your drawer somewhere that you want to dust off and remake now that you've kind of been inspired by, it's the hope is not lost, that it can always resurrect something. Is there anything that you have that you'd like to do?
Well, I mean, I definitely have a bunch of feature scripts that I've written. I definitely would love to work with Kyle again. That's for sure. I know Kyle's got some great stuff up his sleeve. I actually run a film festival now. Kyle showed a few pieces there, but there was one that spoke mostly to me, which was about a paranormal investigator called Host Gunter, which was one of the funniest shorts I've ever seen in my life. So, it's really at this point, I think my focus is, just surviving in this crazy economic climate that we're in, but like, still finding a way to maintain my storyteller status. So a lot of that has to do with what kind of budget you can drum together. And, I hope that Mirror Life is able to give me sufficient credibility to be able to do another thing. But if it doesn't, I'll find a way, because if I don't create, it's kind of like, you ever see that clip of Dennis Hopper where he's like, create or die.
Yeah.
And it's kind of how I feel like I can't take too much time off from being an artist, because it'll start to like, it'll get to you, if that's the way your brain works. So
I would personally love to see you guys work together on something. Kyle's had who was the gentleman we had? Michael from Blair Witch Project. What was the
Mike Williams?
Michael C. Williams. Yeah. So yeah, we recently interviewed him, and that was interesting. But yeah, Kyle's working on Popeye the Slayer Man 2 right now. Kyle, is that like next year it's going to go into production?
April, we're shooting in April. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, I tell you, it is great to have both of you on. And I made one film myself in a documentary, and now I'm doing the podcast. But I totally appreciate what goes into it, making a film from script to final delivery, and going through the whole film festival circuit, and then getting it with distribution and having something meaningful. So you did a great job. I unbiased, not asking for it. I mean, I got to get out and give you a review on this, but usually when Kyle brings someone on and I haven't seen this film before, I'm like, all right, I'll take a look. But this surprised me. This film surprised me, and all the way up until the end. So I enjoyed it. Great job.
I really appreciate you taking the time and watching it. And I'm just happy you enjoyed it, because that's, at the end of the day, you know, that's, you just want people to go for a ride and, you know, hopefully enjoy themselves. So if that's what you did, then, you know, mission accomplished.
Yeah, anybody who doesn't want to see the same old and see something, because that's one thing in horror. I want fresh perspectives, and this was nice. I was able to see that, and the backstory was incredible too. So, Kazy, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to mention or promote that you're working on, or?
No, just, you know, it's that season, and I just hope that everyone listening, just my only piece of advice is stay true to yourselves and be good to each other.
Excellent. Kyle, what about you? Let's give us a closing comment from you. What's your as you head into the new year, you're a new father, and you're still in the acting business, and you're still a filmmaker. Any thoughts on you, or anything you want to mention you're working on as we head toward the new year?
A great man once said, "Be true to yourselves and be kind to each other." So I think those are great words.
Okay, that's excellent.
Yeah. But thanks both for your time today. It's always a good time to come on and chat with everyone. So thanks again for hosting, Bob.
It's my pleasure. Really enjoyed the movie again, and look forward to seeing it do great. And look forward to your next thing for both of you that you work on. Thank you.
Awesome.
Happy holidays, gentlemen. Take care.
Thank you.